Hi, you're watching Video 101, What Does a Video Cost? I'm John Crossman. Today's segment we're talking about production, and we're talking about how locations impact the cost of your production. If you really want to be simple, cut to the point, each location is a day. Now, that doesn't have to be the rule, but it really is close to the rule. And the reason I say that is because it depends on how far the locations are away. If you're in the corporate office downtown, it's going to take you at least an hour to get your shoot set up. You shoot for X number of hours. If you're shooting an interview, that might be limited to an hour. If you're shooting 5 interviews, well, now you're there 5 hours. You're going to want to set up a little bit differently. You may want to set up totally differently between interviews so that, not everyone is the CEO, so not everyone's in the CEO's office. You're going to want to, have some people sitting this way, some people sitting this way, so that when you edit it together, it doesn't look like everybody's just in the same place exactly the same way. So, you want to get half a dozen interviews, that's a day. Will it be, a full 10-hour day? Probably not, but it will be so much of the day that you're really not going to get to the factory in time to shoot people until before they leave. So your next location is the factory. That's another day. I've mentioned many times I did a series of OSHA videos for a company. We went to a factory in a different place. I had shot a lot in the factory here in my town, but they wanted to get, different people in a different place, even though everything else is pretty much the same. So we went to a town about 5 hours away. So one day was travel. So I got paid half a day to travel. And then I think I shot 3 days in the factory. I shot it all over. And it was great because so many times when I'm editing, I wish I had more footage to choose from. I didn't have the problem with this. Now the producer was very organized. The scripts had been written. I knew what I needed to get, and then I just got more because you can always use more. So in that kind of shoot, that was 3 days at a different location. Part of those 3 days we were out with drivers who deliver and pick up. So we were at client locations. The producer had to, tell them we were coming and get the okay that we can bring our cameras in. So it wasn't all 3 days in a factory, and then there was just some, what I call B-roll of trucks on the highway. They drive by, they drive under the bridge, you're behind them, you're in front of them, you're passing them, all these kind of things, them driving through the streets of town. And so that probably took at least half a day. The drivers leave very early in the morning, so we were on the road, by 6 o'clock, shooting their deliveries and pickups. After we got 3 or 4 of those, we took a break, waited till they, had a hole, and then we met up with them again and shot them going down streets and, going down the highway and turning around. And it was kind of funny because where we were shooting was right near a state line. And of course, trucks have to go through a port of entry. And so every time we'd redo the take, the driver would have to go through the same port of entry he'd just been through. And I think the people there started wondering, what are you doing? You're literally driving in circles. But hopefully he explained what he was doing, and we got our shots, and it was great. But a location, that's why I figure a location a day. When I was doing documentary work, we would do at least 2 a day. Actually, we do at least 3 a day because we would shoot every night. We would shoot interviews because you can't interview the school people during school, so you have to wait till after 3 o'clock to edit. To shoot. So we would generally be somewhere at 7 in the morning, shoot till maybe 10, be someplace else from 11 to 1, be someplace else from 1 to 3:30, and then go to the district office, say at 4:30, and we would shoot at least till 6 or 7 sometimes a whole lot later than that, just depending on what was going on at the time. So that's really tough, because every time you go to a place, you have to unload your gear, find a place to keep the cases and charge the batteries and all that stuff, and then you're actively shooting for a couple of hours. You come back, you pack it all back up again, you haul it all back out to the van, you drive 20 minutes and you do it all over again. And so four stops in a day is a ton of work. And it's a ton of work. There's no other way to say it. So did we need to do each one for a day? No, probably not. But 2 locations, if they're near each other, say 20 minutes apart, half hour apart, that may be achievable. It depends what kind of shooting you're doing. But how many locations you're going to need is going to impact the cost of your video. Changing from corporate to music, if you want a concert venue, you want a studio venue, you want some kind of nature venue, you might want, some other kind of venue. That's 4 venues. It's going to be 4 days. If you want certain light, you will probably have a 20 or 30 minute window tops where you have the right kind of light, like that golden hour they talk about in movies and television. So if you're out walking along the shore with the sun going down, the sun's going down. So in 30 minutes, it's going to be down and you're done. If you didn't get the shots you need, then you're going to have to come back the next day. If you're shooting in public, you're going to bring attention to yourself. It's not a bad idea to let, especially if it's a heavily used public place, to let the police or security people know that you're going to be shooting there. You may be able to shoot there without a permit or whatnot, but they would probably appreciate a heads up, especially if you're going to generate a crowd. Some places, even deserted BLM land out in the middle of nowhere, depending on who you talk to, you may have to get a permit, you may have to have insurance, you may have to have somebody come with you. You're not going to go to Zion National Park and just start shooting. You're going to draw a crowd, and the park ranger is going to nicely come up and ask to see your filming permit, because that's what they do. And they can work with you, and that's why the more planning you get done in pre-production, those are the kind of things that you work out. But that's how locations can impact the cost. Some places that you might think would be free, you're going to have to pay for. Other places that you would think you couldn't shoot, you might be able to get for free, just for mentioning them in the credits, or showing their sign in the background or whatever. It depends. It ranges all over. That's why you do your homework in pre-production, so that these things don't surprise you. But the more locations, the more time, the higher the cost is going to be. So that's how locations impact. Obviously, if you're traveling, or if you're using actors, we talked about the 4 kinds of video that is shot. You start to mix some of those videos with, different locations or whatnot. Then now you've got logistics, and all that impacts your budget. So think about the locations you really need. Think about how you might be able to use, a location for everything, or get everything in one location. These are the kind of things that will impact the cost of your video. You're watching What Does a Video Cost on video101.com. I'm John Crossman, and thanks for watching.